Hey everybody, it's time with another thought, and this one is about free speech. And I want to start out with this quote that I really like. I don't agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, Voltaire. And I believe this coming from a person who likes to do some writing in my own personal time and also like to have discussions with people. And it comes down to the question of how we like to define free speech. And I believe free speech is the ability to say whatever you want. And in a utopia world, we could actually go with that definition pretty simply because we would understand everybody's trying to work for the betterment of this planet. But we don't live in there, so we got to kind of dial back some of what freedom is. And I do believe there should be some speech that we can't say just for the simple fact that it goes to directively incite violence. For instance, if someone says go out and kill that guy, that's a direct order, and that if that action happens, that shows causality towards that. But to say, oh, I wish people would die or something like that, that's not really a direct order. I wish I had $1,000,000 does not mean I'm going to get $1,000,000. But that's more a legality issue. My reason for doing this video is more of speaking of what people get hurt by certain speech or triggered is what I've heard the new word is and stuff. But I think the freedom of speech should be our basic right, and that's why it's the First Amendment in there. And all this stuff that I hear about the college campus trying to suppress free speech or safe spaces for ideas and stuff makes me think back to my own liberal arts degree and stuff. There was several times where I just did not like what someone said, and guess what? I sat there and listened to it. I did have the right to get up and walk out. I did have a right to interject, or question that person's thought process. But I never had the right to say, hey, you're an idiot, or you're stupid for believing that, or something like that. And even those ideas that I did not have the right to do would be considered under free speech. That's not what I believe free speech is about. Because calling someone an idiot for what they believe might be true in a sense, but that's not the argument. The argument is on the idea basis. I don't have a problem with people calling stuff as stupid or idiotic, but they need to be able to back up. For instance, in my creative writing class, we never could just say that story just didn't work. We had to break down why the story didn't work. The character wasn't fleshed out enough, the plot just wasn't believable or something to that point. And I think that's the problem with dismissing ideas right off the bat. Some people will say there's ideas that you should dismiss off the bat because we've already had the discussion, argument, and stuff. And to a point, you can say that even though we live in a current century where we still have discussions on if the earth is flat or round, which we thought was decided when circumference of the globe and stuff, even though it's not a perfect circle. But I don't believe that that discussion really holds merit, but I'm not going to stop the conversation from happening. If someone wants to believe that the earth is flat, they have that every right. But I still don't want to give credence to that idea by entertaining the thoughts. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people's free speech. They believe if I can just get in there and start stomping and making noise and stopping the conversation from happening, that that will somehow be a way to stop the idea from growing. And in my short existence in life, whenever someone starts screaming and yelling, I think it actually fuels the fire instead of waving it. Usually, when you ignore something, the idea kind of dies down and lets go. Or if nobody makes a yell about it, and someone's standing on a street corner and no one says anything to him or does anything or stops to give him any kind of conversation, sooner or later that conversation's, since it's not being fostered or grown, it's going to die, because that guy or gal will not be on that stoop very much if he or she doesn't have someone to discuss it with. And I think that is the best way to actually go about an argument and stuff. If you really feel that the conversation has no merit, then why would you want to discuss a conversation that has no merit? I personally try not to waste my time with stuff that I don't want to hear. I have family members that don't believe in vaccines, and I believe in vaccines. And we can go round and round, and we've talked about it. But if I don't want to discuss it, I say it right off the front. You don't believe in vaccines, I do. That's where we are, and we're not going to change each other's minds. So let's not discuss it if we don't want to have that conversation. And that's one thing I really think is how you actually approach in a mature way a discussion. Now, if you're going to have a healthy debate, you need to set up the ground rules for that debate. There need to be a baseline for where this conversation can go and not go. And what I mean not go is the fact where we will boil down and just call each other names and say that you're Hitler or you're a snowflake or whatever. The conversation needs to be about the meat of the thing. Secondly, you need to have your facts. Some sources that people quote and stuff has been disproven, and a lot of people really says just the same talking points. In writing, I would call it the cliche remarks and stuff like that, the dialogue that you always hear and stuff. And that stuff gets boring. What I mean on facts is like hard data or something I can go look at and see if it has credibility or what. If it's just strictly your opinion basis, then when the discussion is going to happen is you need to have that format is, I'm going to always be pro on this and you're always going to be against on this. And we're just talking opinions, so therefore we're not going to cross the line where I'm going to try to convince you. We're just going to have dialogue where you're opening my eyes to something that I may or may not heard, that you got some fresh information about, and things like that. And I know sometimes the dialogue gets a little heated because these are issues that we hold very true to ourselves and stuff. And I hold a lot of views and stuff that I get heated about. And it's easy to go to that point where I just call someone an idiot or something like that. And frankly, that's the first thing that's actually on my mind, because you're going to a place where it's like, this has to be the stupidest discussion that we're having right now. But it's a challenge to stick with just trying to stay with the facts and stuff. That with the discussion on free speech and everything like that, you have to understand there's a lot of the people that are going to have uh, difference of opinion on something, and you got to understand that as much as you believe in what you're believing in right now, they believe in that. So when it comes to the discussion, you need to know if you're going to have what kind of discussion, or an idea of what kind of discussion you want to have. And that should be brought up really early in the conversation with that person. Now, if this is just some spontaneous something where someone's jumping in your conversation, or you hear something and you think you're going to add some nuance to the subject or something like that, then the rules really kind of go out the window, because you're already starting at a point where the other person was like goes on the defense there and feels like they have to run the ball over something and does not want to have the intelligent conversation. I mean, very few times where someone interject on something have I really had a full conversation where we could actually start from a point of agreement to disagree. And I think that's the very important thing with the conversation, is to start a point. And I know there's a lot of people on both sides of any conversation wants to hear what the other side has, and wants to be able to tell the other side what they believe and try to convince them. And I think most of the time it's in good intentions and stuff, but I think the problem is that good intentions does not translate into the discussion, because you'll hit a point, or you want that got you moment more than understanding moment. And I don't think that's anything wrong with it, but I do think that's where maturity comes out of, where you want the understanding moment versus the got you. Well, sorry for the length of this. I have many thoughts process on freedom of speech or expression, with my hobby as writing and stuff, because been through where there was little censorships and stuff. But this has been a fun video. Hope you like. If you have any questions or comments, just put them below. Tony out.